Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1954. 1954. I am your host, Mike Matthews. Welcome to the show that is simply called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
We're podcasting from Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley. It's the last place on earth, and your name is Sally, and it's almost Friday. I took yesterday off. It's important to get your days off because you need them. You require a day off now and then.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Although my day off included going to get the car that my
Mike's
lovely lady friend
Daily
had been
Podcast
mistakenly separated from. She had taken the car to to a mechanic to help it get smogged because California has these crazy smog laws because they're scoff laws. And so we are almost there, getting it passed or not, or almost getting it to the dump where it will then sit forever. And that'll be it for the car, the Mike Matthews Mobile. And she basically had to take an Uber to get out of there because the darn mechanic was closed. So I went to get it the next day, taking public transit. No, I did not take Uber. I took public transit. And I must say, taking BART was fine because I was going the opposite direction everybody goes, away from San Francisco. And I went towards Pleasanton, and I got on a Pleasanton bus. They call their bus service Wheels. It was very nice, very relaxing bus trip. There was only one group of guys that got on and talked as loud as they possibly could. Look at me, look at me, look at me! I need attention, or I'll die! And then there was this one guy who got on who decided to sit right next to me practically on the other side of the aisle, and I don't know what he was doing.
And here's today's podcast picture.
I mean, he was kind of leaning over his backpack and doing some kind of weird, secretive stuff. I don't want to see that. I don't want to know what's going on over there. Stop that, sir. But I got off of the bus. It was downtown Pleasanton and a nice day and nice people for the most part and beautiful sort of holiday. And this one guy comes up to me. And he's got this little dog named Buster barking away. And he says, I sell socks. I sell socks that are therapeutic. Basil wasn't there, though, sadly, because I had to take public transportation. He's not allowed on it. Sorry, Basil. I bet you would have loved to meet Buster, too. Yeah, Buster was this kind of a weird corgi mix of some kind with Pomeranian. And didn't have as beautiful a bark as you, Basil, the boxer. The guy was telling me all about these socks he makes that are good for feet. And if you're diabetic and you need your feet protected. And I was like, yeah, type 2 diabetes. That's a thing. That's good. You're getting in on the ground floor with that. And he kind of looked at me like, what did you just say? But yeah, he had these really thick therapeutic socks. I mean, these guys were like, you could live in them. They were huge. And he makes these things. So that was an interesting person to meet on my day off. And then I got to see my friends that live down the street. And I've never played their piano before, and I did a little bit of that. I played a song I wrote years ago, decades ago now, called Single Men. And I'm not single because I'm with my lovely lady friend, which takes us to the podcast picture today. The last podcast picture, my lovely lady friend took that from downtown Pleasanton. And the podcast picture today is of my lovely lady friend and I when we were visiting Santa Cruz and staying with that guy at that Airbnb who said that Basil was failing. You fail, Basil. Sorry. He just, by the way, engulfed the remaining bits of turkey that I had from last week because I made my turkey late. This is all informative stuff, isn't it? This is all helpful. This is all stuff you can use. But what I really wanted to talk about here on episode 1954, and I'm sorry I got all into the history thing, but that's one thing that Oliver Stone's history documentary that I guess he made back in 2015 got me thinking about history and stuff we don't typically know or just kind of gloss over. And we should remember stuff. That's the problem with history, is those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, and we shouldn't forget stuff. Okay, but here's something that we forget all the time, and that is when we get interrupted. Have you ever had a conversation with someone, and someone or something just interrupts you, and your conversation completely gets derailed, and you were about to talk about something? Let's say the person you're talking to asked you a question, you were about to answer it, and you get derailed. Derailed. I hate that, and it happens all the time, and I'm starting to find in my focus I'm fascinated by what it is that we forget, that we get sidetracked away from. Today, somebody was asking me, what do you think, as far as the new Doctor Who series goes, is the best visually, the best quality of the Doctor Who years? And I was about to say Matt Smith, because some of the Matt Smith stuff really does have nice movie texture to it. And somebody interrupted me, and I didn't get to say that. I can think about, eons ago, when maybe I was interested in a young lady. Of course, I'm young as well. Not that I was an old guy interested in a young lady, because that's a little creepy. We don't want to get into the creepy section of Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth. So I was talking to, when I was a young man, a young lady, and I'm just saying I would get interrupted constantly. It was like the movies where you see someone, and let's say they're both in school and they're talking to each other, and they get interrupted by the teacher. Mike Matthews, report to the principal's office. Or then years later, it seems like we get interrupted from the good stuff, don't we? Just like right now, I'm being interrupted by leaving Cafe Anyway and going outside in the patio. What do you think about interruptions? You can call me 336MM Daily. 3 + 3 = 6. MMM is a Mike Matthews. Daily is in what this podcast is. Oh, speaking of creepy things and creepy men interested in young ladies, there was this fascinating, so there's this show that we carry on one of the radio stations I work for. And it's a couple of psychologists and therapists, and they get calls from people who have questions, stuff going on in their lives, relationships and all that. And it has a religious slant to it. It's basically for Christians, about Christians. So this lady calls up, and she says her daughter, who's 18, is dating a guy who's 52. And his name's Donald Trump, is what I wanted to say. No. There is a large age discrepancy between Donald Trump and Melania, as you well know. As there is a large age discrepancy between Macron and his wife, as I recall. But back to this interesting tale. So both of these psychologists strongly advise the mom of this 18-year-old girl to please speak to the guy she's dating and say, hey, end it. And then I talked about this with my lovely lady friend who's also a therapist, and she said, well, actually, there's even more to this, because if he started dating her when she was 17, oops, that's illegal. So there's all these other levels to it. But it was interesting because the mom was trying to make excuses for the guy dating his young daughter, or dating her young daughter. It wasn't his young. Okay, now it got really creepy. But she made the excuse for him that he was a good Christian and that her husband liked him. So, but the three psychologists jumped on that right away. No, this is wrong. This is the age. And they pointed out these two people are in absolutely different stages of their lives. And so this young lady has a lot to live and learn. And this is, she's going to have, if she stays with this guy, the important years of her life squandered away with him. And he is just being creepy. So to sum up, Jeremy Irons. And what was that movie he was in? The one, Lolita. That's right. When they made the movie version of Lolita, he was in that. Okay. And that was creepy. But speaking of Jeremy Irons, he was really creepy in The Time Machine with not Guy Ritchie, Guy Fawkes. No, Guy, I can't think of his name. Anyway, that guy who is still popular from Memento in the early O's, he did The Time Machine in 2002. And this is before the Doctor Who reboot, which is also about time travel. But this is the H.G. Wells Time Machine, and they didn't completely follow it verbatim, but they did get into a little bit of the things that the book talks about. And it was interesting because Jeremy Irons was in it, and there's this one scene where Jeremy Irons is the villain, and he's got the Time Machine guy, played by Guy Ritchie or whatever, and he says to him, you know, you're doomed or whatever, you need to leave this time. And Jeremy, the guy, the hero of the show, of this movie, says, well, I have, you know what I have on my side is I'm always asking, what if? And the whole reason for him traveling through time was his girlfriend, his fiancée, died. And then he tried to go back in time to prevent her from getting killed, and she gets killed by another method. Sounds like another movie I remember seeing. And so he realizes that he can't change time. There's a certain fate factor. But his question is, why can't I go back in time and change time? That's his big question that pushes him. Now I realize how stupid this movie is because I'm not sure exactly. Oh, so Jeremy Irons is this villain, and he's fighting the guy, Richie guy, and Guy kicks him partly out of the sphere of the time travel thing, and his arms get cut off, and this all leads me to what if in these conversations that we have that get interrupted, we're allowed to continue with the conversation. What would have been? So basically what I'm telling you is have a really good memory, and when you get interrupted, try and remember where you left off so you can go back and finish the conversation. Because communication is important. I don't think we do. A lot of us just abandon conversations, or don't even engage or have conversations at all. For example, one-word texters. Do you know a one-word texter? You ask them a question, and maybe you've typed like 20 words to ask your question, and the person responds with one word. That's all you can afford me is one word? That's all I'm worth is one word? Or two? I know a guy, all he ever responds is with one or two words. And he's probably not even typing them. They probably just pop up on the screen of the suggestions of that what you can respond with. Ugh, people are so lazy. It's such a lazy society. And here we are, we're entering the 2020s. And I was talking to a millennial today, and he's like, it's interesting how things haven't really changed too dramatically since, let's say, 2002 or 2000. But, the technology has advanced quite a bit. But we seem so, if you watch TV shows, and the only thing that gives it away that the show is old is that you look at the cell phone and it's a flip phone. This is an old one. Or the phone's the size of a brick. This is a really old show. Or you see some of your favorite actors that you know now are completely gray and old and wrinkled, and they look young. They were young then. And that's how we know it's old. But what's really different? Bob Garfield from On the Media, the radio show, he was commenting about that 10 years ago. My point is that we're lazy, and when we had the power outages, and I remember seeing a cartoon of a guy with the power out, and he's got everything plugged in. He's got the computer and all this other stuff, games, Game Boys, whatever. Game Boys, is that a thing? Xboxes, whatever. are all plugged in, and he's got no power. So he asks his phone, Siri, how long till my power is back on? Well, now his phone is drained, so Siri can't answer that. But is that what we are? We are. Okay, just wanted to be clear about that. Oh, and one other thing today, I was walking along and I saw a squirrel on a tree. And I'm right next to this really busy street. If you know, it's at Paseo Padre in Fremont. This street is busy. It's all the way across both lanes, all the way across 6 lanes altogether. And the squirrel's on this tree, a cute squirrel, fuzzy little ears, and it looks at me, and I'm walking towards it, and I'm like, uh-oh, I hope I don't spook it and make it run across the street. It runs across the street, just as I'm thinking that. And I'm like shouting out, no, don't do it. Don't do it. But the squirrel made it, and he didn't zip through a bunch of traffic, but there was one car coming one way, going one direction, one car going the other way. And those cars both had to slam on their brakes practically because they were about to hit the squirrel. The squirrel just barely made it to the tree across the street. Now, I don't know if he does this 8 times a day, but I felt like, oh, God, if this guy gets killed, I'm going to feel real responsible. Don't you hate that? Hey, let's say hi to some people here outside a cafe anyway where there's squirrels and all the trees. And life is happy, and there's a little bit of a breeze.
Hello, Mike Matthews, Chely Shoehart, job supervisor. Oh my God, you had a lot to say today.
I did. I had a lot on my mind.
That's right, Mike Matthews. I don't like Siri. I like the one that the Google person talks from. The OK Google person.
Oh, great. You made my phone just activate. Thanks.
Sorry, Mike Matthews.
That's okay. Hey, look who else is out here at Cafe Anyway, the last place on earth somewhere in Podcaster Valley. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Yes, Mike. Artificial intelligence is going to become a lot more important in the years to come. And then those years to come will be a lot different from now. You almost sound a little like Sam Waterston just then. Thank you, Mike Matthews. I will take that as a compliment. Yeah, okay. Hey, I'm building a septic tank in Alabama. More about that probably in podcasts to come. I think you will hear about that in the upcoming podcasts. I'm thinking about building a septic tank in Alabama. It's expensive. But next show, it's going to be the wonderful Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. Thank you for listening. If you would like to comment, you can call me 336MM Daily. That's 3 + 3 = 6MM, as in Mike Matthews Daily. As in what this podcast has been not. Well, we missed a day, huh? We did one on Tuesday. And now it's Thursday. That's almost daily. We'll try and get back into a daily routine soon. But thank you for playing along and being so understanding. You can also email me, MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. And to repeat that, it's Ariel.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!